Tisha Lance, also with us, brand manager George 2.0. And Tisha, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on seeing Reggie Bush? We saw Derrick Rose of the Chicago Bulls as well. How much of a difference-making move is this?
You know, I think some people might say, you know, it's great that celebrities are taking a stance and they're wearing shirts and they're doing something, but really we want to see, just like the person who tweeted said, is them actually taking action, doing something in their communities, being role models on and off the court, not just wearing a shirt. Because some people are a little skeptical, saying that they may be wearing these shirts and doing this just for their own publicity and for their own press, but not really for the cause and for the matter that's going on.
George, weigh in. Your thoughts on the athletes and the stand we're seeing via the shirts.
I think it's exceptional. I mean, African-American athletes using their voices to be a part of this conversation, I think that it's an awareness that they're presenting that says they recognize their bodies to be billboards. I mean, these guys are putting on somebody else's name, somebody else's face, somebody else's, you know, product on their bodies every single day. And that means the brands recognize that they can be commodified and used to make money. So it's great that they recognize that they can be a part of the conversation silently, non-violently, and not disenfranchise themselves from a community that they're a part of. It's saying that they recognize that they have an impressionable population that sees them, sees their images reproduced, their likeness used over and over and over, and they want to make sure that they're being responsible and using their right and their privilege to be a part of the conversation. I think it's wonderful.
George, let me ask you a question. You're a brand manager. So what if, for instance, there's a celebrity out there who doesn't necessarily agree with the mainstream thought of what's going on, right? And as a celebrity, you put your brand out there every day. Do you think that celebrity should be putting their opinion out there when they don't agree with what the mainstream are thinking or doing?
Well, I mean, there's this term I've been using recently called social immediacy. And that means that the person involved with an opinion or involved with a crisis like this has to think immediately about what their message is going to carry across many, many mediums. So tweeting, Instagramming, using your body, you know that your image is going to be recreated. So I think that is, you know, incumbent upon this individual to be a part of the discussion as a human being. Just because you're married to a brand or a team doesn't mean that you're married to their ideology. And that's the difference between managing yourself as a brand and being sort of a pawn for a larger institution.
Hey, George, so what do you think of Charles Barkley weighing in? And he was more on Ferguson, and because his opinion went against the grain to some degree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been dealing with Charles for a while, right? I mean, since the late 90s when he said he wasn't a role model, when obviously he is. You don't really get a chance to make that choice. It's a privilege to be seen in the public eye. It's a privilege to be a part of these conversations. It's a privilege to be lauded as an athlete or an entertainer. And that makes you a role model. So I've been disagreeing with Charles for a little while now, but as it pertains to his saying that he didn't think that, you know, what was happening in Ferguson was productive, I agree with him to the extent that, you know, some of the destruction of property can be a little bit non-productive and sort of sways the conversation into another negative space. But what we have noted, contrary to what Charles is saying, is that this is still a part of the conversation we're having. These protests, these rallies, this onslaught of attention is allowing people to be a part of a conversation. There's no magic wand to wave at this issue. The issue of social justice, the issue of African-American males being disproportionately represented within the criminal justice system. There's no issue to wave at that. But the conversation is one that can be had and one that is instigated by constant protests and constant activation by these small micro movements.
Natasha, I see you kind of shaking your head. Do you think that there are, you're sitting here like, what?
I'm listening.
But do you think that there are often times when celebrities do get involved and it's not necessarily positive?
You know, I think it's great that celebrities do get involved, but I would like to see them be involved all the time, as opposed to when there's just a big issue that happens and takes place. I'd like to see them involved with not getting involved in the criminal justice system, because we have seen a lot of athletes on the other side of this, a lot of athletes who are being arrested for bad behavior. So I don't just want to see them wearing shirts during a situation like this, but I want to see them being role models, and just as George said, they are role models whether they like to be or not. So I want to see them acting as such on a daily basis.
You know, but George, I have a question. You know, we've seen like the Russell Simmons, you know, they speak out a lot about these sorts of situations, and Spike Jones, you know, they're very outspoken about Spike Lee. Oftentimes, though, kids in that community don't necessarily respect the celebrities that do speak out, and they think, hey, why are they even getting involved? They're in a much different tier than we are. So what do you say to those kids?
Well, I mean, to those kids, you have to think about their absence from the conversation. Far too often when these kind of issues happen, celebrities or people in the public spotlight continue on with business as usual. And their absence from the conversation sort of breeds an apathy amongst those that would patronize them otherwise. So I think that their involvement, to the extent that whether it's on T-shirts, whether it's via their platform that, you know, the social media platform, I think their involvement is imperative. It allows everyone else to realize that, you know, they're not separated from the humanity and from their freedom and from their rights and their ability to synthesize that there are issues. They don't separate that from their workplace. And I think there needs to be a marriage of the two that continues in order to help this conversation move forward.
Hey, real quick, let's get Natisha and George, both of you guys weighing in. There are two big-time athletes that have been somewhat criticized for not taking a stand. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. Should they? George, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, it's difficult as an African-American male to act as though this is not impacting you. And both of these athletes, being African-American males, have two of the largest platforms, even though Michael's retired and Tiger's not doing that well now, but they have extremely large platforms that they could use, you know, to sort of weigh in.
They're still worldwide, real quick.
I don't know that it makes a difference. I think that people protesting and actually going out and doing something, that's going to make a much bigger difference than seeing a celebrity or an athlete or whomever it may be saying something about it.
Right. And just to make a final point, I don't necessarily think it's just about African-American athletes. You know, this, like everybody's been saying, this is not just a black or white issue. You know, everybody should be weighing in and showing support.
Excellent point. George 2.0, thank you, Natisha. Good work as well.